it did not look like a weapon. At first glance, it could have been a torch, or perhaps a short length of industrial piping carried by a tradesman into a factory yard. 7 inches of darkened steel tubing, a weighted ball at one end, a simple strap designed to secure it to the wrist. Anyone who noticed it would have dismissed it instantly as a tool, something mundane and harmless, something that belonged in a toolbox rather than on a battlefield. Nothing about it suggested violence, and that was precisely the point. That assumption would have been fatal. Hidden inside the unremarkable cylinder were 3 separate instruments of death: a lead-weighted Cosh capable of crushing bone with a single downward strike, a length of piano wire long enough to silence a man in seconds, and a spring-loaded stiletto blade that could be deployed with a single shake of the wrist. 3 distinct methods of killing, each proven in isolation, unified inside one compact device. Collector records suggest that no more than 2 dozen were ever produced, making it one of the rarest purpose-built assassination weapons of the Second World War. This weapon came to be known as the McLaughlin Pescott close combat weapon, one of the most unusual tools created for Britain's clandestine war against Nazi Germany. Its existence speaks not only to ingenuity, but to desperation, and to the extreme measures Britain was willing to consider when survival itself was at stake. In 1941, Britain stood at the edge of defeat. Nazi Germany had ripped through continental Europe with terrifying speed. France collapsed in little more than 6 weeks. Norway fell despite British intervention. The Low Countries were overrun, their armies shattered. Greece and Yugoslavia collapsed under the weight of blitzkrieg, and German troops now stood guard over an empire that stretched from the Arctic Circle to the shores of the Mediterranean. Every bridge, every rail junction, every power station, every coastal radar site was protected by armed sentries. Behind those sentries lay the infrastructure that fed Germany's war machine. Britain could not confront this empire with conventional armies. The British Expeditionary Force had barely escaped at Dunkirk. The Royal Air Force had only just survived the Battle of Britain. There would be no immediate return to France. If Britain was going to strike back, it would have to do so invisibly, from the shadows, with sabotage and assassination rather than divisions and tanks. In July 1940, Winston Churchill authorized the creation of a new organization with a single, incendiary instruction: to set Europe ablaze. The Special Operations Executive was tasked with building resistance movements from nothing, supplying them with weapons and explosives, and inserting agents deep behind enemy lines. These agents would be dropped by parachute, landed by boat, or smuggled across borders under false identities. Many were civilians only months earlier. Now they were expected to destroy bridges, derail trains, sabotage factories, and when necessary, kill enemy soldiers quietly. Silent killing became one of SOE's most urgent technical problems. A single gunshot, even from a suppressed weapon, could travel farther than expected in the stillness of night. A struggle could give a sentry time to shout, fire his rifle, or alert a nearby patrol. Once the alarm was raised, an operation was usually over. Capture often meant torture, interrogation, and execution. The margin for error was vanishingly small. The ideal kill had to be instantaneous, silent, and certain. One moment the sentry would be standing at his post, perhaps smoking a cigarette, perhaps thinking of home. The next, he would be dead on the ground, and the operative would already be moving on, leaving no sound and no warning. To achieve this, SO relied on a small set of close combat weapons, each of which solved part of the problem, but introduced risks of its own. The most famous of these was the Fairbairn-Sykes fighting knife, designed by William Fairbairn and Eric Sykes, veterans of brutal street combat with the Shanghai Municipal Police. It was optimized for killing at intimate range. Its long, slender, double-edged blade could slip between ribs, sever arteries, or pierce vital organs with minimal resistance. Fairbairn himself taught operatives how to use it, emphasizing speed, surprise, and lethality. Approach from behind, clamp a hand over the mouth and nose, drive the blade upward into the kidney or across the throat. But the knife demanded proximity and precision. If the first thrust failed, if the sentry twisted at the wrong moment, the operative was suddenly engaged in a violent struggle with a trained soldier armed with a rifle and bayonet. At such close range, a single mistake could be fatal. The Garrote offered a different solution. A loop of wire or cord tightened around the throat deprived the brain of oxygen within seconds. Once properly applied, the victim had little chance to cry out or fight effectively. Death came quietly, and often quickly. Yet the garrote had its own limitations. It required the operative to approach from behind, and it offered no immediate answer if the target turned unexpectedly. In that moment, the operative was left holding a length of wire against an armed enemy. The Cosh, or blackjack, relied on blunt force. A weighted blow to the skull could incapacitate a man instantly. British police had used such weapons for decades. Swing it hard against the base of the skull or the temple, and the target would drop. But a Cosh did not guarantee death. A poorly placed strike might only stun the sentry. A stunned man could still shout, still fire, still recover. Even a successful blow might leave a body that groaned or moved, drawing unwanted attention. So operatives often carried all three tools at once: a knife on the belt, a garrote coiled in a pocket, a Cosh concealed in a sleeve. But night operations were chaotic. Seconds mattered. Fumbling for the right weapon, or reaching for the wrong one, could mean discovery and death. Under stress, simplicity mattered as much as lethality. Somebody asked a dangerous question. What if all three methods could be combined into a single device? What if an operative could strike, stab, or strangle without ever reaching for another weapon? The answer emerged from an unlikely partnership. John Edward Pescott was a precision industrialist, the managing director of Cogswell and Harrison, one of London's most prestigious gunmakers. Founded in 1770, the firm had supplied fine firearms to aristocrats, explorers, and the British military for generations. When a project demanded exceptional craftsmanship and absolute discretion, Pescott's workshops were capable of delivering it. His collaborator was far more controversial. Sidney Temple Leopold McLaglen styled himself as a close combat expert and martial artist. He claimed mastery of jiu-jitsu, bayonet fighting, and hand-to-hand combat. He wrote manuals, toured internationally, and promoted his own fighting systems. Many of his claims were exaggerated or fabricated, and even his own brother, Hollywood actor Victor McLaglen, publicly dismissed him as an impostor. Yet British intelligence found enough value in his ideas to give him a naval commission and attach his name to a classified weapons project. Together, they envisioned a wrist-mounted close combat weapon unlike anything that had come before. The concept was formalized in a British patent filed in August 1942 under the deliberately vague title Improvements in or relating to close combat weapons. Behind the clinical language lay a singular purpose: silent killing at intimate range. The finished weapon was compact and deceptively simple. When closed, it measured roughly 7 inches in length. When extended with the blade deployed, it reached over 12 inches. The cylindrical body was finished in darkened steel to prevent reflections in moonlight. It was heavy enough to strike with authority, yet light enough to be worn on the forearm for hours without fatigue. At the top of the device sat a weighted metal ball. This was the Cosh component, a concentrated mass designed to deliver incapacitating force when swung downward. Mounted at the end of the cylinder, it acted as a lever arm, multiplying striking power. A single well-placed blow to the skull could incapacitate a sentry instantly. But the ball served a second purpose as well. Inside the cylinder was coiled a length of piano wire, chosen for its high tensile strength and minimal stretch. Unlike cord or rope, piano wire would not elongate under load. It would bite into flesh. One end of the wire was fixed permanently inside the body. The free end emerged through a small aperture fitted with a finger ring. By rotating the weighted ball, the operative could wind or unwind the wire. Deployed fully, it provided enough length to loop around a target's throat and apply lethal force within seconds. At the opposite end of the cylinder rested the final component, a slender stiletto blade. Spring-loaded and gravity-assisted, it was designed to function reliably, even under stress, in darkness, or with wet hands. Press the release, point the weapon downward, and a flick of the wrist sent the blade sliding into place with a distinct mechanical click. Locked in position, it transformed the device into a dagger optimized for thrusting rather than cutting. The entire assembly attached to the forearm via a heavy web strap. Worn beneath a jacket sleeve, it was invisible to casual inspection. Yet it remained instantly accessible regardless of what the operative carried in his hands. In theory, it was the perfect answer to SOE's problem. In practice, reality would soon prove far more complicated. The early development of the weapon revealed just how difficult it was to merge 3 distinct killing methods into a single compact form. The first prototypes, produced sometime in 1941, exposed serious flaws that